I am love. Together we are never alone. I am enough. I am worthy. I am loved just as I am. I am enough. I am worthy. I am loved just as I am. I am love. You together we are never alone. I see your light. I see your beauty. I feel your heart when I see you smile. I see your light. I feel your heart. 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 I see, I feel your heart.
Just gonna let a couple of people in. And I love that song. What'd you guys think about that?
I love it's beautiful.
Very nice.
Tommy and Jay missed it, but that song sounds like a prayer to me.
Yes.
Mhm.
I'm familiar with I thought I was familiar with almost all of Karen Drucker's work. And I don't recall that one. But
She has a lot of,
I know.
I mean, just albums and albums and albums and albums. And so each week I'm going through them, and I was actually looking for something for Sunday yesterday. And I was listening to that one. I'm like, well, not for this Sunday, but for Monday, that would be great, because it was perfect.
Are you finding these on YouTube, or where are you finding them?
I have, I bought her complete collection on a flash drive. So it's all on MP3. That's why I can embed it into the slides. So it wasn't very expensive. I can't really remember how much.
Okay, so then you just insert your flash drive into the computer, into the USB port.
Well, I did that initially, and then I copied them all onto my computer.
Okay.
So then I just have them on the computer whenever I want to look through it.
You just do screen sharing and then pull it up and screen share it from there?
Yeah, I just open up my, well, no, actually what I do with this is that slide, I inserted that MP3 into the slide.
Okay.
So if you see in the bottom corner, there's a little, it says the name, and right above that's a little megaphone looking thing. That's the MP3 inserted into the PowerPoint slide.
Okay, so it's a PowerPoint slide. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I use is PowerPoint. And it helps me kind of refer back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Thank you for the technological information.
So we open with that song as our prayer, but let's just take a moment and take a deep breath together and release that breath. Just bringing us back to center. Just dropping into that sweet stillness at the very center of our being. And from that place, we just simply express our gratitude and appreciation for this opportunity to be together, and we claim this time together for the highest and best of everyone concerned. Whether you're involved in the Zoom, whether you watch the recordings later, we just know that there's a blessing each and every one of us has brought here this evening. We're willing to share it, to be present, and to know truth. And so it is. Amen. Okay, so let's just jump back over. We've got 3 chapters to cover, but I think we'll be able to get through it pretty easily. So this is the 21st, and so we'll be covering chapters 9, 10, and 11. Chapter 9 is the Great Amen. And at first I thought, well, he's talking about, Hebrew scriptures and a lot of historical information. I'm not sure what I'll be able to bring up that will provoke discussion, but I think just beginning with this, he was saying that in Genesis, there's a lot of amen and so it was. So he was saying, on the first day this, and so it was, and the second day this, and so it was. So it was, and it was so, not so it was, and it was so. And he's saying that is the original amen, and it was so. That sounds as if we're describing something that's already happened, but when we do say amen, it's not just something that's already happened, it's something that we have created, something we have seen and believed in. So he says, things always become to us what we see them as being. This is the power of the amen, because it's that punctuation. They become to us what we see them as being. So when we claim it, when we say our prayers and we close it with, and it was so, or so it is, the amen is that stamp on it that claims it. It said it's a fundamental truth that you will never experience anything in the world of your body and affairs that you have not previously accepted in one form or another into your mind and heart. He says, this is what I call the law of acceptance. So you'll never have an experience of something that you haven't already accepted into your mind and your heart on some level, in some way. So let's stop and see what we have for discussion with that. Any thoughts? You can unmute. No thoughts?
It's another way of saying, and so it is, which is a lot of times we use that, and so it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's also another way of rephrasing, well, actually, the law of attraction, rephrasing that.
Consciousness. The law of attraction is consciousness. And that's
except that in this particular statement, it's not always conscious. It's not always a conscious acceptance.
It's true. So right now we accept that there's a virus.
Exactly.
but we don't have to accept that we will get it. You know, I'm very cautious not to expose myself, but it's not out of fear that I'll get it. My focus is not on the fear of it. It's on taking the steps, following the protocol. If I was focused on the virus itself rather than on the protocol, I would be much more likely to bring it into my life. So you're right, it is worded very similarly to the law of attraction, which I think one thing that Eric Butterworth says, I think that it might either be in spiritual economics or discovered power. He says that the law of attraction is really a sub-law of the law of vibration. So, because really what we're doing is matching our vibe, right?
Exactly.
And so we know that through the ripple effect, when we match vibrations, we amplify that vibe. But if we come across a vibration that is not matching, there's an interference. So it stops that ripple effect. So
Well, I'd like to ask a question about this because I had a conversation with a friend today, and it began to be revealed to me, especially in light of reading this, that she had a very different attitude toward what the end of the virus and how long it was going to take and how complicated it was going to be, how ineffective and all this, that, and the other. Very different picture of that than I do. My picture has been very simple. There are many companies working on this vaccine. It's going to come about very quickly. Somebody's going to rush up the testing because it's so important. And, you know, by the end of the year or soon after, we're going to have a vaccine. We're all going to go about our business. So her attitude toward it was very negative and full of complications. Mine was very simple and very positive. So how does either one of those affect the, I mean, for example, if we all had a negative attitude toward how it was going to develop, would that make it more likely that it's going to be complicated and it's going to be drawn out in actuality? Or if we all have a positive, if a whole lot of us have a positive attitude, the image that we're holding, is it more likely that it's going to turn out more quick and positive? Does it affect reality, and how does that work? I mean, the image.
It does affect reality. I mean, just look at the stock market. One person makes a comment about, you know, usually the head of the Fed or whatever, but any kind of slight prediction, the stock market, which seems like a very tangible thing, goes into a tailspin. And so that is consciousness. That's the ripple effect of it. But the few people are actually praying from the consciousness that we keep talking about every week, getting into that stillness and knowing divine mind, divine order. The more people that actually do that and pray from there, the more the positive outcome will be.
That's what I'm asking.
Focus on that divine intelligence is at play at all times in all people. The more we affirm it and the more we know it, the more that ripple effect can go out there.
Okay. So that tells me that I'm not wasting my time in thinking or praying that way then.
Not at all. And it can't be a waste of your time, even if your ripple effect meets interference in the ethers. You're being centered. It can never be a waste of time for you. And the more people that are getting centered, the more that collective consciousness is building. And people who are coming from this consciousness of the greater good, that divine awareness, divine intelligence, that amplifies so much greater and faster than the pulling down in the negative. It seems the opposite of that because there's so much more collective in the opposite direction, but it doesn't take that much divine energy to make a shift.
Okay.
A perfect example of collective consciousness is the mass reaction to Ruth Bader Ginsburg's transition, and how even if a woman is appointed to take her place, the women that are under consideration are diametrically opposed to what she stood for, and therefore potentially could undo everything she did in all her years of being a justice on the Supreme Court. So there's a tremendous amount of chaos and fear. And to me, it's very, very palpable. And it took a while to figure out, what's going on. Oh yeah, it's because women in particular, but the whole world is in chaos right now. Well, maybe not the whole world, certainly the whole United States.
A lot of it.
Yeah, is in chaos right now, because even though she was hanging on by a thread, the fact that she was still breathing meant nobody was going to be able to take her seat on that bench and change her opinions. And so now that she's gone, it's like, oh, all the gains that women have made in the last 30 years could potentially be undone by another woman who holds the opposing views.
And
So
putting our attention on that, as opposed to focusing on a solution, or whatever that might be, the focus on the chaos is just more chaos.
Absolutely. And so what we have to do in this case is see that seat being filled whenever it's filled with somebody who's going to support women's rights and continue to advocate for us.
And
rather than be in fear that all of our gains are going to be undone. I don't want to have to ask a man to sign so I can get a credit card. What? Give me a break.
And if we're allowing I think from what I've read, maybe this was a chapter when I wasn't here, so y'all might have already discussed it. But if I'm allowing myself to stay in fear, then that way diminishes my ability to be in the higher level consciousness where I can participate in the positive solution. Is that correct?
Yes, and that is in chapter 10 in how to pray for others. So we will be talking about that in just a little bit. But it's the amen, so many times, even if we don't say it's so or so it is, we try to say what we think is the truth, right? The facts. Sometimes we misconstrue the facts or the details of a circumstance as the truth. And it's really important for us to continue as spiritual people to know there is a difference between what the facts appear to be and what we hold as truth. There's a big difference in most of our day-to-day experiences. Some of us get to live magically in a world that we create completely of our own, but not a whole lot of us. So let's see, someone wrote in the chat, Carlos, to everyone, very interesting comment by Judith. Thank you, Carlos. Judith, I don't know which comment it was, Carla or Carol, not Carlos. Why did I say Carlos? Oh, because someone named Sanchez joined. Okay.
I think it was about the comments about RBG.
Oh, okay. Well, and some people, want a very conservative woman on the Supreme Court. So, we have to keep a balance of that in mind. So he goes on to say, affirmations and metaphysical treatment have very little power of themselves. We've talked about this a little bit before when we were talking about mastermind and things like that, that when we say our prayers by rote, or we just kind of are going through the process, we lose that oomph in it. He says the magic is in the believing consciousness. with which we articulate the words. So it's really important that we focus on and we believe in what we want and not believe in the opposite of it. So thinking that we could revert back to having to get a man's signature to get a credit card, not that you meant that literally, that was an example, Judith, but that is the way it used to be. But our focus is more powerful and more useful when we say, I want to continue to have the autonomy and the freedom that Ruth Bader Ginsburg has allowed women to evolve into, or her presence on the Supreme Court. So we want to continue to evolve as women in the world, not necessarily equal to men in any particular way, but to have the freedoms, the equal freedoms and the equal, because men and women are different in so many ways. Women have strengths that men don't have, and men have strengths that women don't have. And it's not a gender thing. So we're all human beings. And what we really want is that we all have the opportunities to self-actualize and the opportunity to evolve and become the highest possible version of ourselves. And that's the focus for the Amen, is that we claim that. We claim that we get to continue on this road of evolution. He says, the universe is calling, singing its song of life. I've got live, but I think I have a typo there. Let me reread that, or let me pull this up and read it out of here. Yeah, it should be song of life. The universe is calling, singing its song of life and love into your whole being. You are one with the divine flow. You are in tune with health and substance and love and peace. You walk and work in tune with the infinite process that turns all things of your life to good. And to this I say amen. That was on the last page of chapter 9. That was his blessing. He said, dear reader, hear me with your heart when I remind you. The universe is calling, singing its song of life and love into your whole being. You are one with the divine flow. You are in tune with health and substance and love and peace. You walk and work in tune with the infinite process that turns all things of your life to good. And to this I say, amen. I love the way he claims that for us. So in the chapter, How to Pray for Others, he says, I am not to pray to God for help, but to know my oneness and to pray from that consciousness. It is a waste of time to try to change another, not because people can't change, but because change is a growth process from within the person's own self.
I love that sentence.
Thoughts? Oh, it's Marianne Sanchez from Unity of Brownsville. Thank you, Marianne. Any comments about that, or should we keep going?
Change comes from within, for sure.
Yes. So I told on Sunday, no one's here from our Sunday, so I'll tell this. I told a story about when I was at my mother's hospital bed, and there were two ladies from her Baptist church sitting there talking to one another. And my mother was a very quiet lady, and she was just sitting there, and they were talking to one another. And I had come in and just kind of quietly present with my mother while the ladies were talking. And they looked up and they said, don't you agree, Beverly? And I said, well, I didn't really hear your conversation. And they said, well, there's this lady and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, we really felt a certain way about the way she was behaving and this, that, and the other. So we've been praying for her. We've been praying, we've been getting together on a regular basis, and we've been praying for her. And you know what? She is changing. She's changing. So don't you believe that prayer is powerful that way? And I looked up and I said, I, probably shouldn't have said this, but I said, I'm just wondering, is she changing or are you? And their faces were like, oh, what? But when you're praying for someone, you are changing your heart and your mind about that person. Even if in the sort of misguided way that they were praying to change her, they were praying. So their heart and their intent was in the right place, but their intention was to change her, which you cannot do. But it changed them by virtue of the fact that they were praying for her. And they could see her differently as a result of spending this time praying for her. But I'm sure she was probably still doing the things that she was doing all along because she didn't see a problem with it. That was her thing to do. But he says it's just a waste of time.
That's interesting. The idea that you change as you pray for others. That's very, very interesting.
Oh, I know that's true for me.
Yeah.
When I pray for others, I mean, sometimes when I wake up in the night, I don't know who I'm praying for. I'm just praying out into whoever needs to receive prayers and blessings at the time. I can feel it shift my vibration because my intention is for the good of others.
Yeah.
So that naturally changes my heart. And
Yeah,
he says
Yeah.
this,
Go ahead.
comment.
Oh, well, I've had that experience too since the last 6 months or so. I've started praying for my clients, and I've had my business for 23 years, but this is the first time that I've ever prayed. It's ever occurred to me to pray for my clients. And I mean, not praying that they would change or anything like that, but mainly giving thanks for the work, giving thanks for the relationship, a lot of times friendship with the person, as well as and also but then just sort of a feeling of breathing and asking God to breathe through me the best for them and all their family and friends, and nothing specific. But I try to remember to do that with every client I have every day. And it's made a difference in the feeling of empowerment. Well, I won't say empowerment's not the right word. It makes a difference in me feeling like I can be a vessel of God. Because by doing that, I'm not doing it, but through my actions, I'm asking God to, send those blessings forward to those people.
Yeah, so you as an expression of God are blessing them. So being a blessing changes how you feel in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's empowering to be a blessing.
Yes.
I think that's beautiful. What do you do? I'll be your client if you pray for me every day.
Well, in real life, I have a full-time pet sitting service, but I also sing and play the piano and do peace concerts occasionally. But the job that I was referring to is my clients in the pet sitting service.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I need someone to sit my little wild child. No, I don't.
Oh,
I'm home all the time.
A long drive.
Yeah. So here's what he says about praying for others. He says, as long as an impulsive concern leads the way, you will fail to achieve positive results. So as long as we're focused on the worry and the concern, and it becomes impulsive, right? You see something, you name it as wrong, it needs to change. You can't get good results. You have to go to the solution. You have to pray from that consciousness of good. You have to pray from that consciousness of knowing. Just as you're praying for your clients, you know? Any comments? He says, the important need is not to try to affect change in other people, but to make some changes in your thoughts about them.
Hmm.
Don't try to set them right, but rather to see them rightly. Get out of the feeling of concern. So you can't pray for someone's health and focus on the disease.
Mhm.
You have to focus on the wellness, because the energy of focusing on the disease and the energy and of concern and anxiety is a powerful prayer that is counterbalancing. It's the other end of the stick of what it is that you actually intend to pray for them. It's like if you have a son who's making decisions that you feel are detrimental to his good, but you keep talking about it, you're going to pray and you ask your friends to get together and pray with you for your son, but you spend the first half hour talking about all of the things he's doing wrong. Tommy, are you playing the guitar?
No,
Oh, I'm
ma'am.
sorry. I'm
I'm-
sorry. It was me, Carol.
Oh, okay, Carol. That's all right.
Mute me, please.
It was nice. Okay, just a second. Let me go to another slide and then I'll mute when we come back around. He says, unless you can let go, you can't pray effectively for another person. An insistent concern for another person indicates an unwillingness to let go. So unless you can let go, and that is the process that we've been talking about. That's what we've been covering, because he says, first, you have to relax and let go. That's the very first step. Then you go into the stillness. You relax and release, you go into the stillness, and once you feel that connection with the stillness, you pray from that consciousness. But the first step is to get into that. And the more you do it, the more you meditate, the more you focus on it. It really helps me to do it with breath. That's why I always begin with take a deep breath. Because for me, that's my shift. That's when I feel that I'm dropping my focus into the center of my being. Maria, do you have a comment?
No, I'm just listening, and it resonates very much so.
Okay. You just
Well,
kind of looked like you had a thought. Valerie?
It sounds like to me, both with this, with praying for another person, and with what we talked about in the last chapter, what we affirm, like what I say out loud, my friend tells me she has just gotten this diagnosis. I go and tell another friend, I'm affirming the diagnosis, right? Same thing, like if I say something, like, you know, well, I guess this partly goes back to the last chapter, but I'll make this short, but let me ask you, if right now I'm thinking, because of all the unrest going on in the country right now, that here in San Angelo, there might be something more that I could be doing to help us, you know, have the multi-ethnic kind of events, kinds of things. But if I say, like, the reason for that is because we don't have those relationships that we should be having, therefore, you know, a group could start doing that, then really I'm affirming the negative, right? Which means it's going to give it power.
So here's the linchpin in that. You can state the way things are without passion, without energy, and then put your passion and your energy into the solution.
I see.
You know,
Okay.
if you're saying, "Oh, I'm so frustrated," then you're really putting that energy
Okay.
out, right? The vibration. But if
Okay.
you're just saying, you know, there is a need for reconciliation. There's a need for more awareness. Here's what I'm
All
going
right.
to do to promote it. And I
Okay.
then get excited about the talking of the new
Yeah.
vision. But you
Okay.
can say that there's a need for something, but you don't have to get all frustrated and angry and put that energy
Sure.
into
I see what you mean. Okay.
it. Yeah. So the
And
energy
then
is
with the
from that.
illness, and with the illness, like if somebody that, say my mother knows, has gotten a bad report from the doctor, maybe it's okay to say, tell my mother I'm keeping this person in prayer because she was told by her doctor such and such.
Well,
Or
and here's what people do with diagnoses and things like that, especially if it's someone of a similar age or you know, what we tend to do is we start projecting our own fears onto that person's situation.
oh,
And so then we start talking about, oh my gosh, this could happen and that could happen. And then poor Fred, he'll be left alone. And then, you know, that is all going down that road of all the things you don't want to happen. Right.
okay.
So, and we're trained into that. We're trained to go to fearful thoughts
Okay.
and to live in them. So we have to catch ourselves and it doesn't matter if someone else feels like you're discompassionate because you don't go, oh my gosh, that's so terrible. How are they gonna? You can listen compassionately to someone's health concerns and still know truth for them. I had a friend that had breast cancer a few years ago, and we were on a sailing trip on a boat together, and she was saying, well, somebody told me that, you know, I should just see like Pac-Man gobbling it up. And what I said to her was, I can see why someone might say that, but that's still engaging with it. Why
I
not
see.
take your vision all the way to healed?
Okay.
You don't have
Okay.
to work through the healing process. Go all the way to the vision of pure, perfect health and hold
Okay.
that.
Okay.
And so, you know, I didn't want to take away from that. She found some energy in that. But sometimes people want to be in the battle for a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And we shouldn't judge them for it. But we, for ourselves, hold that higher watch
Okay.
of perfect health, perfect wholeness, perfect harmony in relationship.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
just noticed that Maria had written down, praying for others helps me to take the focus off my constant egocentric self, wanting to control outcomes. Oh, it's Mary Ann, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
So
I'm sorry.
Mary Ann, do you want to comment?
Sure, I just don't have my video on right now.
Okay.
I can just give you an example that happened recently, and I'm new to Unity and this thought process. I've probably been along this thought process and believed in energy healing, but never really had experienced it. And so in our Power of Eight group, I was experiencing some terrible tooth pain, and I've had 2 molars just taken out prior to that. And it woke me up, the pain did. And I started envisioning Judith and BB and all of the people in our group. And I said, I need you now. I was sort of half asleep and half awake. And so Judith was very much forward in what I was semi-visualizing. And so I don't know how long the time frame was because it's kind of hard to tell when you're in that place. But the pain stopped and I was able to go to sleep. So it's been a process because I think all of this takes practice. Belief takes practice. and it doesn't always happen. And like you're saying, us being conditioned, I think a lot of times that I would beat myself up for not being able to do it right, you know. Well, I know that it's just a process of time and experience, and I'm not one who just lets go. So if that's been your personality, it takes a lot to work on it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I think that's a perfect example of making a choice, right? Instead of lying there and feeling powerless, you said, okay, I'm going to envision them. Then you're calling forth on, we are operating on so many different dimensions we don't even know. So you're calling forth a dimension of them to come and be with you. They truly were there in support of you. It doesn't have to be a conscious effort. I mean, that is the whole power of prayer. And we're all souls. And when we need something and we call out, that's why I say sometimes I'm just praying out into the universe that it goes to whomever needs it. Because I don't have to know who they are to know that I'm helping them. So I think that's great. And you affirm that with yourself, and you had that physical experience. It's amazing when you actually have a physical experience like that, that's
Yes.
so validating to the metaphysical truths. That's huge. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
What she didn't share is that it woke me up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
It did what you felt it, huh?
Yeah, because when she was telling us the story, I said, "What time was that, Marianne?" "Oh, probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning." Well, guess what? I woke up then.
Oh my goodness.
But you know what? That's a perfect example of how we do imprint the world around us. We form that momentum, and you can tap into it by thinking about it. And particularly because her plea was an earnest, emotional plea. I need help, guys.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, we all came forth to help her, not even consciously, because we love her and she's part of us, and we know that we're all one.
Mhm. Yeah, that's why when I wake up, I think I need to be in service to the world, because if I'm consciously aware and if I'm awake, then my soul is answering some call. I don't know what it is. And she said you were forefront in her mind. So she connected with you and you felt it.
Mm-hmm.
And he even makes a reference to that in this book. He's talking about love, but it's love is everything, right? Everything is love. Even sometimes it doesn't look or feel like it, but it's that people do feel you and feel one another.
And in the particular group that Marianne is talking about, we are all so cognizant of the fact that we are one, that love is that glue that binds us together, and we all feel it. We all love each other, and there is nothing we wouldn't do for each other. So, and she knows that very well. So it was just capitalizing on that knowledge.
Yeah, it was a manifestation. It was. And what she said about belief, you know, belief is just the things that you do and say, and how you demonstrate what it is that you hold true as truth in your life. I'm sorry, I started from the beginning again. I didn't mean to do that. That's what truth is. I mean, that's what your belief it is just, if you want to know what you really truly believe, listen to what you say and think on a regular basis. So he says, did we already cover this one? Oh, here, this is exactly what you're talking about. When you love another person, something in that person feels it and responds to it in some way. And when you think about a person you love, there's a response in that person to your thoughts. But here's what the kicker is. It goes both ways, right? So when you think of someone you love and you're thinking positive and loving thoughts, they can feel it. But if you're feeling fearful thoughts, they can feel that as well. They can feel the concern and the anxiety. And that's what's been going on with our whole world for 6 months now, is that we feel a collective anxiety because there's been so much first fear and then frustration, and I don't know what's going on exactly now. It goes day to day. It says, when you worry about a loved one, you're putting that full weight of your consciousness on the side of their difficulty. So your work initially is to change your thoughts, to heal and resolve your concern, to change your thoughts, and to heal and resolve your concern. That's the first step. Unless you can let go, you can't pray effectively for another person. An insistent concern for another person indicates an unwillingness to let go. And this happens so much when we think that somebody could do better, but we keep talking about what they do wrong. We keep holding them stuck in that old paradigm through our consciousness. So even if they do evolve and they do better, we can't see it because we're still stuck with our insistent concern. And we're unwilling to let go of how they used to be and what they used to do. So he goes on to talk about, does anybody want to comment about that?
I would like to say, Judith knows I'm a big mouth. I'm always jumping around all over the place, right, Judith? In relationships, especially in marriage or love relationships, that is a very difficult thing to do. And I can see that everything just plain takes practice. I guess maybe if I look at things as an explorer, and this is an expedition, and I'm going to go ahead and take this other road, the one that you're talking about, being positive and in your mind, in your prayers, and in your actions toward someone, that you would have to really consciously stop each time and say, okay, how am I seeing this? And then, like you're saying, you choose how you're going to see this situation.
Yes, very true.
And Marianne, the part about letting go is the part I'm always calling be neutral to it, so that you don't have a judgment one way or another.
Right. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I understand what you mean by that. Right. You're letting go of the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Or letting go, not just letting go of the outcome, letting go of the concern.
Appearance, the appearance to you. So we live in a world of illusions, right? I mean, I look at something and I see it this way, and Judith looks at it and it looks like that. And so we don't even see the same thing. We could both have concerns. So we have to let go of those concerns so the divine wisdom and intelligence of the universe can show us what it truly is.
And that's why we focus on the outcome we want rather than the problem.
Okay.
And you're doing super well, by the way. I'm so shocked that you're on here and talking after what you just went through.
Yeah.
Well, that's because I'm doing great.
Yes, you are. Yay!
Yay! We all affirm that with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Glad for you too.
Thank you.
So Reverend Jay typed in the chat, our job is not to set things right, but to see them rightly. Yeah, we used that quote earlier, and he says, as Butterworth says, so the approach we take has to be one of the highest energy flow we have and not attend our prayers with the human egoic negatives. We have to be elevated in our consciousness without anger, fear, or anxiety or confusion. And Carol says, true. It is true. Yes, because our human nature is from that reptilian brain. We're always looking for, what do we need to be afraid of? How do we need to protect ourselves from danger? how our survival brain always wants to identify places that we should be afraid and that we should be concerned. And it has a place in our survival, but it shouldn't take front and center, because as evolved human beings, we can see beyond the appearances of a threat, and we can know truth. We can choose truth. So here in this last chapter, which is a word about Jesus, he says, the insight of prayer that we are outlining comes directly from the spirit of his teachings and the works of prayer dynamics that he demonstrated. He was a master teacher of the dynamics of prayer, the outworking of prayer. People call it miracles. There were no miracles. They were an expression of the consciousness from which he prayed, from which he spoke words, from which he affirmed. Christianity, or perhaps we should call it churchianity, has so emasculated Jesus as to make him totally beyond reach. And that wasn't Jesus's intention at all. He said to the disciples, these things and even more so shall you do. Eric Butterworth goes on to say, too much attention has been given to Jesus's divinity and not enough to his humanity. And I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
That has really bothered me a lot, really, because I'm still formally a member of the Episcopal Church, even though I don't go very often anymore. But I feel like when I'm at the Episcopal Church, I feel like Jesus is almost unreachable. And when I'm at Unity, I feel like Jesus is, right here with us. Now, when I get away from either one of them, because of some experiences I've gone through, I feel like God is wholly within me most of the time. So I don't feel a void in that respect, but it does make me question how much time I want to spend in the Episcopal Church, because I don't feel like they focus on, where do we take seriously the line about, that Jesus said, these and greater things shall you do. I mean, he was showing the way, is my understanding. And so we're to look for how we can be like Jesus instead of always focusing on how far apart we are.
Exactly. And that is some of the underpinning of what he calls churchianity, right? Where they've put Jesus in this role of divinity, one with the Father, but forgetting one with us and his humanity. And what he says about his humanity, he says, he ate and drank and had friends and enemies. He laughed and cried. He was criticized for going to parties and associating with what might be called the beautiful people. He slept much outside and was extremely dark of skin and never ate with a fork in his life. And there's some more here, but because we're running a little bit short on time, I won't read much more. But he's really focusing on Jesus was a human being just like we were. And we are divine just as Jesus was. We are an expression of God. He says Jesus didn't come to save the world en masse or as a group, but to teach people one by one how to find the Christ indwelling and walk by its light. The Christ meaning that energy of God that is alive within each one of us, in all of us. And it expresses as much as we will allow our awareness to be focused on it and be alive in our life and walking by its light. He says the whole insight of the inward out prayer process that this book is articulating has its roots in Jesus's teachings. Jesus set the inward out tone of prayer when he said, when thou prayest, enter into thine inner chamber, and having shut the door, pray to thy Father who is in secret. And the Father shall reward thee openly. So when he's saying, when thou prayest, enter into thine inner chamber, that is the going within, that's being in the silence. And having shut the door, he's saying, having released the appearance of things, having released the circumstances, pray to the Father, pray from that knowing, pray the Father, thy Father is the consciousness, the oneness consciousness in secret, and the Father shall reward thee openly. So it's not about, hey, look at me, I'm the big prayer, I got it going on. You can pray without anybody knowing that you're praying for them or for yourself, but the manifestations will occur in your life, in their life, and most importantly, because of your intention to pray. So we have about 1 minute, or as long as you want, but 1 minute to honor our time of 1 hour. Final thoughts?
Very good.
I know Eric Butterworth is just like, he was just, I mean, he lived it. So when he could express it, he could share it in a way that's just so attainable. We can all be there. We can all live it as well.
When did he start writing in comparison to, I mean, how far along in the unity movement did he start writing? Approximately.
When was he published, you mean, or?
Well, I mean, or, you know, when he was around, when it wasn't at the beginning of the unity movement, right?
No, the unity movement is 135 years old, or at least silent unity, as they actually started before then with prayer service. But yeah, he was writing in the 20th century.
okay,
So
yeah.
He actually started Unity Church of Rockford, Illinois, after spiritual leading in Ohio, and he was a musician as well, interestingly enough. But as I see his life, when I read about his life, it was a becoming to what we're talking about here. He went through it and proved it for himself, and that's what I love so much about what he writes, because he admits he was a spiritual neophyte in the unity movement in the 40s, learning to prove these things for himself.
And I think that's just the whole point of it, Jay, is that we're all here to go through it on our own and to prove it to ourselves and to support others into the proving it of themselves. Because
Right.
as our fifth principle says, you can prattle on all day long about all the spiritual principle in the world, but until you put it into action, you don't know. And that's why I always tell people who really want to learn, you know, take some classes, yeah, but also start teaching it. Because when you make that commitment, you step into, just like Judith leading the Power of 8 group, when you lean into being an active part of not sharing it just from the talking standpoint, but to supporting the living of it. It's a living experience.
Right.
So yeah, I appreciate that, that he's been through that. And I was talking to a friend of mine up in Dallas today, who's a CSL minister, and we've known each other 20 something years, back when we both had corporate jobs and were studying in a group together. But, we were talking about the living of it and how we change. And, he was talking about comments that people made to him that, well, you should do this and you shouldn't do that. And, he's like, I'm going to keep changing what I do because I'm an evolving person. We don't get somewhere and then we're done. You know, I was counseling with a 30-something-year-old this afternoon, and she was all feeling all sorts of ways that she's been feeling off and on since I've known her for years. And I'm like, you know, just take it that you're going another level. You know, it might feel like that you're backing up and starting over again. But every time we get to a new level of understanding, which expresses as a new level of consciousness, we don't just stay there. You know, we've kind of told ourselves as a society that you grow up and then you're already grown up, but we're ever evolving. And that's true from our consciousness standpoint and our understanding of the world and our way of being.
And Beverly, I bet you mentioned Discover the Power Within You, right? That was done in '68, which is really like a rewrite of Lessons in Truth for a newer audience. And I didn't know if you'd ever mentioned that book because you're doing The Universe is Calling, but that's another good foundational Butterworth book.
I've mentioned at different times a number of them, but yes, the Discover the Power Within You book is, it shifts everything.
It did. It was a life-changing experience for me. I read it, I guess, 6 or 7 years ago, and it just it brought a lot of things into focus that had been blurry, that kind of going in one ear and out the other. But it also in itself just, I mean, it just turned something inside out within me and has stayed with me. That's been the main reason I wanted to do this course, because I had not read this book. But the other one had such a wonderful effect on me.
So that one kind of helps us put to all the metaphysical concepts into context. And then, but we're always talking about consciousness. So in spiritual economics, he's talking about your prosperity consciousness. And then in the flow of life, he's talking about your creative process consciousness. And then he has practical metaphysics. It's a series of essays that he's written that helps us to get, again, that deeper understanding of metaphysical concepts. And Celebrate Yourself is another good book of essays that he's written that just helps you kind of get in touch with truth in a relevant, personal way. All right, well, we've run over just a tiny bit. Any further questions or contributions? Thank you all for generously being here with your time and your intention and your consciousness. I mean, you are.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thank you for leading us through the process.
Well, thank you for showing up so fully. All right, so we will just close with a very simple, deep breath of gratitude. And as we release that breath, we just settle into appreciation and simply say thank you. So it is.
Oh, it is. It was wonderful seeing all of you.
Can you see? We can't see you, but you can see us.
I've had some I've had internet, computer, and iPad trouble. I'm on here with spit and chewing gum, but I'm here.
Super glue's the next step.
Super glue is the next. That's exactly
Duct tape. Got some duct tape for you.
And then WD-40.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we finishing the book for next time?
Yeah, next time, the last 3 chapters.
Okay. All right.
All right. Great. Thank you.